I will get us started though, so we don't cut too much into our speaker time. I'll start off with an introduction of myself. My name is Jennifer Clayton. I am the New York State Bar Association Wellbeing Program Manager, which is under our Lawyer Assistance Program. And the Wellbeing Program honors 8 pillars of wellness, one of which being financial wellness. And so today I am excited to have a program entitled Unveil Your Money Tale, Why It Matters Personally and Professionally. And I am so grateful to have some guest speakers, Cammie Doder and Sandi Bragar from Aspiriant. Um, and so I will pass it over to you both. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen. Welcome, everyone. We're really thrilled to be here with you today. I'm Cammie Doder, as Jen said, and I'm here with Sandi Bragar. We're going to provide a little introduction in a moment. Before we do, we just really want to say that our intent for our time together is to help you fine-tune and gain comfort sharing your money tales and confidence in talking about money. We want you to walk away with 3 things: how important it is to know your money tale and how it impacts you. Second, why sharing really helps you both personally and professionally, sharing that money tale. And third, tips to help you in talking about money. And in there, we'll embed some topics around money myths. There's a lot of them out there. We really believe story is a powerful tool to bring to life what we're talking about. So Sandi and I will talk about some of the things that we want to highlight, but we're going to really weave in real life stories to bring that to life. But before we dive in, yep, there we are on the screen. Thanks, Jen. Before we dive in, I'd like to ask Jen to bring up a poll, and we'd love for all of you to answer a question just to get a sense of the baseline. Where do you all stand? So Jen, could you bring up the polling question? So the question is, how comfortable are you talking about your personal financial situation with others? And we can't tell who you are.
Be honest here.
Yeah, exactly. We can't tell who you are. So please provide your answers. Excellent. Someone's comfortable. I like it. Uncomfortable. Yes, we're not surprised by this.
It's fun. We can see the responses trickling in. I'm not sure if everyone else can see it just yet, but give you another moment or two.
This is great. I love seeing it.
Okay, Jen, maybe you could end the poll now.
Let's see the results. Excellent. So, we've got a number of you who are comfortable and a little bit more who are uncomfortable. This isn't uncommon, and we really, that's why we're at this conversation. We want to empower those who are comfortable, just kind of take it next level. And those of you who are uncomfortable, find that comfort zone. So let me give a little bit more of an introduction and go ahead and take the survey down. I don't know if I can. There we are. There we are. So again, I'm Cammie Doder. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer and a partner at a national independent wealth management firm by the name of Aspiriant. At Aspiriant, our clients are individuals and families who are financially successful. They're entrepreneurs, they're business owners, executives, they're attorneys, they're inheritors. So they really run the gamut. And what's common across the board, where the commonalities are, is they're looking for context and clarity around their wealth and have their wealth work on their behalf and in support of their values. And that's what we get to do every day with our clients, and we're really passionate about it. My money tale begins, I was born and raised in Southern California, but my money tale is about my upbringing, my heritage. And all my grandparents came from the former Yugoslavia, and they came with little to no formal schooling and little to no money. So they worked really, really hard. They were scrappy and they saved. So when I was being raised, the stories I heard and the messages I heard were work really, really hard and save, save, save. So that's my money history. And guess what? My focus coming in out of college was work really, really hard and save, which is, that's all good. That's great. But without really understanding what I was saving for, I was just saving and it was limiting. And really what I wanted to do as I was relieved of my debts and I could live life and enjoy life instead of just being confined by this money tale about saving, I really started talking more about it, first understanding what it was and talking more about it because I really wanted to travel and do a lot more. And so I've worked over the time since then of really one understanding that money tale and rewiring my brain so that I'm still working hard and saving where it's important, but also spending in the areas that I find it's important. I'm now married with two kids and I have different needs, so it's really important to me to be mindful of the strengths that come out of my money tales and the potential limitations. I'll hand it over to you, Sandy.
Thanks, Cammie. I always love hearing your story. Hello, everyone. I'm Sandi Bragar. I'm Chief Client Officer at Aspiriant, and I am so delighted to be here with you today. I am one of those people who is practicing her dream profession. I learned about financial planning, wealth management when I was in college, and I was attracted to it because it answered so many questions that I had. So I grew up in Southern California, also a whole different side of LA than Cammie. And I grew up in a very loving home. My parents are wonderful people. They've been married for nearly 55 years, and I love and respect them. They are human. And when I was 7 years old, they made a series of decisions that caused a lot of financial stress in our family. First was a good decision, I think, on their part, because I love my little brother. They had their third child. And this was soon after my father started his own business, and he's a landscape designer and contractor. And if you know anything about that field of work, it does really well when the economy is strong. That's when people want to spend money on their landscapes and their yard and gardens. But when the economy is challenged, like it was in the very late 70s, it's hard to get work, and it was hard to start and launch a business, especially with 3 children in the family. And at that same time, my parents decided that they were going to move us to a new home, and they stretched into a home that they could barely afford. It was 1979. Their mortgage interest rate was 19%.
Oh,
So we think rates today at around 7.5% are high, 19%. And they decided to move us because of some challenges that were happening in our local neighborhood where we were living. So all three of these things were happening simultaneously. There wasn't a lot of money coming in. There were a lot of expenses going out. My mom was home with the 3 of us kids, and my parents just felt so much stress, and they argued and they yelled and they had big fights. I remember running upstairs to my bedroom and putting my hands over my ears and thinking, there's got to be a different way. This can't be what money does to people. And so when I got to college and I learned about financial planning, I knew it was what I wanted to do. And it is a very exciting profession where we get to help people every day have very productive money conversations and make really good financial decisions for themselves and their families. And it's that work that launched Cammie and me into developing Aspiriant's podcast called Money Tales. And we did this about 2.5 years ago. And really what we were trying to do was take what we hear from clients every day about how happy they are to have us as trusted advisors, people that they can talk to about money conversations that they can't have with anyone else. And that feels so good as an advisor to hear those stories. But at the same time, you're thinking, gosh, there's got to be other people to talk about money with. How do we break this taboo? How do we open it up and help people have productive money conversations that we're having with our clients, with other people? And so that's what we've been doing with Money Tales ever since. Every week we interview a new guest about their life, about their relationship with money, about how they're feeling about money, how they make decisions, what it's all about for them. And we're modeling productive money conversations. And as Cammie mentioned, our goal today is really to bring that to the forefront and provide you with some tips and ideas to help you improve your money conversations and really hone in on your money tale. So before we get into that, let's do our second and final poll. Jen, if you could help us out. 58% of you told us that you're not really comfortable talking about money. So we're wondering, for all of you, when you do talk about money, who are you talking about money with? And Jen, if you're able to add, put that poll up on the screen, that would be great. So when you do talk about money, who are you talking about it with? Are you talking about it to yourself? Your spouse, partner, parents, siblings, friends, your financial advisor? We have clergy on there because we did have a client referred to us by their rabbi. So we know that there's money conversations going on with everybody, but in your life, who are you talking to that you're most comfortable with? We'll give you
These are such
another.
good results. I can't wait to share them.
Yeah. All right, we'll give it another moment. And why don't we end the poll? Great. And so,
All right. Wow.
yeah.
Friends?
So where do we? So this is quite interesting. So, well, first off, let me start by saying this group is very normal.
Yes.
Not that comfortable talking about money. And when you're talking about money, there's a variety of different people you're talking about it. What is interesting is that 50% of you are most comfortable talking about it with friends. There was a survey that I found last night, just looking around, that the financial group Empower conducted last year. And their results say that about 62% of the group that they surveyed were comfortable talking about money. So just about where we're at today, maybe a little higher, I think. And then when it comes to talking about money, most people were more comfortable talking about it to their spouse or partner. Next was family, and third was friends. So this group is a little bit higher than those results that said about 46% of people were comfortable talking about friends. You guys are a little higher there, so that's great. Interestingly, in that same result, people said that they prefer to talk about politics or death more than they prefer to talk about money. And they also said their results the results they found from their survey also said that millennials and Gen Z were much more comfortable talking about money than the older generation. So I think there's a lot of great hope here for the rising generation who may be part of our conversation today. So as we start to focus on our money tales, we want to make sure that everyone here is aware that there are two sides to money.
I'm going to lower the poll. There we go.
Yeah. So there's two sides of money. There's the technical side of money. And when people reach out to us at Aspiriant, this is why they think they're reaching out to us, because they need help with something technical. Maybe it's understanding how the tax law works, how they can make a charitable gift in a way to reduce their taxes. Maybe they're wondering, how do I save money for retirement? There's so many different retirement plans out there. How do they work? How do they compare? What are the differences? Estate planning. Some of you on this webinar might be experts in this area. That's a whole complicated technical area for a lot of people. And sometimes, budgeting and long-term planning of figuring out how are my resources going to grow and are they going to be able to meet my needs? Those are all very technical things that have to do with money. And in this country, we don't do a great job of providing financial literacy on average. Some schools have programs, but not many. And people tend to have to learn on their own as they move through life. So that's the technical side of money. The other side, and this is the side that in our experience, people don't really think about that often. And so we want to raise awareness because it's there. The other side is the emotional side of money. How does money make us feel? And how do we feel about money? Right? There's so many emotions. And I want to do a quick exercise here to really bring this to life. So I hope all of you have at your desks or your screens, paper, pen, something, a device that you can type into, something to record all of this. So for this particular exercise, I want you to calculate your net worth. And we don't have to be precise here. We can just estimate. And to calculate your net worth, if you've never done it before, you're going to estimate the value of your assets. Your assets are everything you own. So if you own a home, a car, a retirement account, a savings account, an art collection, whatever your assets are, take a moment to estimate what the value of all of those assets together is today. And I'd like you to please write that number down on a paper or just type it into some sort of device that's near you. The next step to calculating your net worth is to estimate your liabilities. And your liabilities are what you owe. So liabilities are mortgages, credit card loans, student loans, loans to mom and dad or to any other family member or friend, loans to the government in the form of taxes that you have to pay in April of this year. Sum all of those liabilities up and record those as a negative number. And then I want you to net those two numbers together, assets minus liabilities. That is your net worth. And I want you to take a moment to please consider what's going through your mind right now. What are you thinking about? What are you feeling as you look at that number? And now what I'd like you to do, and I want to make sure we all do this together, so please listen to my instructions very carefully. On the count of 3, I would like everyone to type their net worth into the chat so we can share it. Are you ready? I'm not going to ask you to type your net worth into the chat, but I would like you to share in the chat how my asking you to share your net worth in the chat made you feel. So I'm going to give everyone a moment to please share. How did you feel? What was that like
Great
for
answer.
you?
Extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah,
A
this
little
is the emotional
shaken.
side of money, right? This is it. And so a question for all of us to consider is, what's driving these feelings, right? So shaken. Yeah, see, we're already connecting on this, right? Now, we just described the money as having 2 sides, and these sides they're just woven together. They work all the time. And I do think the emotional side of money is the more important one, because in my experience working with clients and also talking to all of our guests on the podcast, it's this emotional side of money that really controls how we make decisions. And so the more you can the more you can tap into the emotional side of money and understand where your emotions are coming from, will help you not only tell your money tale, but also share and understand more about yourself. Okay,
And
so
Sandy, we received a question in the Q&A box, which we'll get to at the end. We really appreciate Karen put one in there. We encourage anybody else to add their questions, and we'll get to that at the end.
Yeah, great. So let's talk about the power of our money tales.
Let's do it. So, Sandy, I think about how our money history, if we shine a light on it, how it can really unveil that personal side of money. And what I'd like to share with the group is a story from one of our recent Money Tales guests. Some of you may know her, Diane O'Connell, who joined us and told this amazing story that will bring to life, like getting to our roots, how important that is. So Diane is an author, speaker, coach. She's a workplace culture reinvention strategist, an attorney and mediator, and a member of the New York State Bar Association. And Diane was kind enough to introduce us to your group. So we really appreciate you, Diane. Diane's story, she was a very successful attorney for a couple decades. And she started developing sort of a silent, really horrible thing that ends up being diagnosed as generalized anxiety disorder. And it was debilitating. It was awful. But it also doesn't come with like a clear treatment plan. She didn't break her wrist and they, put a cast on it. Like it requires a lot of work and a lot of understanding and digging into what was at the root of this. And through a lot of hard work, Diane realized a lot of this was coming, maybe all of it coming from what the message she learned as a child to develop an extreme financial scarcity mindset and fear around money and worrying, is she going to make, no matter how successful she was. So what she learned in her youth is, and really came to life when she was thinking about her money tale, and she told it, was the message. Money wasn't really talked about in her home, but her mom was a single mom working really hard to provide for the family. And what she heard was, the mantra was, how am I going to pay these bills? How am I going to pay the rent? So just fear, fear, fear. And that's all they talked about with regards to money. The rest was sort of taboo, as Sandy already touched on. Don't talk about money. Well, what that developed in Diane was, this subliminal message around, no matter how successful I am as an attorney, I'm never going to have enough. And thankfully, Diane is a hard worker, and she's just really gotten deep into understanding that history and what was driving her and causing all these challenges. And with that, then could create her own treatment plan, which was actually kind of rewiring the brain. I'm going to be fine. I need to work on this every day. It's one of those things, you don't just kind of acknowledge it and it goes away. Something she works on a lot, and has been, as a result, just turned herself around and is an amazing person, and highly recommend you listening to her Money Tales episode. Wow.
She's fantastic. I want to tell a story about another Money Tales guest. Sanford Livingston talked to us. He's a person of color who grew up in Trenton, New Jersey. As he told us, his mom defined job for him as just over broke. So he's growing up, again, in this scarcity mindset situation. And he had an opportunity to work with a nonprofit in his area who helped him land a spot at a boarding school for high school in New England. And from there, he went to Wesleyan University. And when he got to Wesleyan, he was assigned a roommate. And his roommate was a person who was fifth generation of an extremely wealthy, successful family. And Sanford told us about what it was like living with this roommate and how they became really good friends. They had all these meaningful money conversations. The roommate invited Sanford to come join his family at the family's compound in the Caribbean, and just what that was like. Sanford said he was, likely the first African-American person to be invited to the compound. And this friend's family had such an impact on Sanford that when he grew into his adulthood and started to have a family of his own, he decided that he wanted to create intergenerational wealth among his family. And that's what he's doing today. Every week, he and his kids get together. They have a family meeting. It's happening over Zoom as they've spread out. And they talk about investments. They talk about what they're doing, and they make decisions together. So I think these two stories are really important because they highlight that a lot of our money tales are formed by the experience that we have when we're young. Cammie mentioned, just the impact of what it's like, what our family situation is like when we're growing older. But it's also influenced by the people that we meet and befriend, the choices that we make, the careers that we choose. Our money tales are also informed by what's happening in the greater world, right? Think about people who were growing up during the Depression. Those folks knew what it was like to not have money for anything and to barely get by. And so as they grew older, they tended to not spend a lot of money. They would hoard things, right? They were fearful of that situation unfolding. People who experienced the financial crisis, where all the money that they had saved and invested fell by over 50%. Like, that's scary. That impacts you. If you're growing up in a time of ease and there's no geopolitical events going on and everything seems easy, that influences your money story. So we really want to encourage you to think about what has shaped your money story. And this would be a good opportunity in the chat for us to ask you, and feel free to share if you'd like. Consider your own life and what you've experienced so far. And if you're moved to, please share what event or situation has most shaped your relationship with money to date. So So think through as you go back, was it your childhood? Was it a decision that you made? Someone that you met? What's had the biggest impact on your current relationship with money? Anyone
Or
want to share?
it doesn't have to be the biggest, sort of a.
Yeah, I always go to the extremes.
Getting divorced. Absolutely.
That's a
That's
big one, right?
huge. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, there's a lot of money conversations and decisions that need to be made around divorce.
Childhood and current personal financial challenges. Absolutely.
Mm. Thanks for sharing. Yeah,
Oh, yep. Sandy,
I
you
can
shared
relate to
one.
that one.
Yep. Parents fighting about money.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
when we understand how these things impact us, it really allows us to start connecting dots. And that's where we get into the power of sharing
I'll
our
throw
money
one more.
conversations.
Sandy,
And
change of career. Yeah,
yeah,
that was a good one.
right. There's so many things that shape us. The good news is that while these things shape us, if we're cognizant of what's going on and how they're impacting us, we can decide how we want them to shape us. And so that's what we want to bring out for you. And we want to encourage you to hone in on your money tail. And we'll give you some hints about how to do that in a little bit. But first, we want to share with you the power that we've seen from our clients and all of our podcast guests of sharing their money tail. And it's really quite magical at the end of each recording when we stop recording the episode. Guests will often give us really positive feedback of, wow, I haven't thought about these things ever or in a long time. And one of the cool things is when you get used to sharing your money tale and you say it out loud to other people, you can start making connections. You can start connecting the dots between all these things that have happened in your past and how you're thinking about them and how you're making decisions. And so what we find, especially with clients, is that until they start telling their tale and becoming more cognizant, they were kind of operating on autopilot, right? They were just making decisions because in their day-to-day life, they were busy doing other things. They weren't thinking a lot about money and what was prompting them to make the decisions. But once they started becoming more aware of their money tales and started thinking more holistically about the role that money plays in their life and the purpose of their wealth, then they began to see, aha, I can make a different choice if I want to. If this particular thing is not serving me or something else would, we can make a different choice. So here are some things that we've observed when people share their money tales, and we hope that you will leave this conversation eager to talk to more of your friends and maybe even your family members and other people about money. So the first thing is when you share your money tale, it helps normalize your situation. So oftentimes when we talk about money with ourselves, we're having that conversation in our head. We're not saying it out loud. We're not processing verbally. So we're using a different skill set within our mind. When we start sharing our money tales, what we begin to understand is other people have had similar situations to us, right? There are many other people in the world who've grown up in a home where their parents are fighting about money. And when we know that, it makes us feel better. We understand, we can dive into those conversations and learn more and open up the experience. It also helps normalize the things that we've experienced that other people haven't. There's a guest on the show, Amanda Gibson, who was telling us about how when she was growing up, she really wanted to leave her home. And as a teenager, I think before she was even 18, she got her own place. You know, she loved her parents. There wasn't anything wrong with her parents, but she just innately wanted to become an independent person. And so she found her own apartment. She was working. She got a job. She put herself through college, and she's had this amazing life. I've never met anyone else who's had that experience, but hearing about Amanda's experience normalized it and made me ask so many other questions and learn so much. So that's a very cool thing. And then another guest that I wanted to mention is Melissa Houston. Melissa is a person who experienced a time in her life where she just didn't feel great about herself. She wasn't happy. And so she does what a lot of people do, which was retail therapy. She started just charging up lots and lots of money on her credit cards. She was married at the time. She still is. And she got to the point where she was in such a big hole for the family. She didn't tell her husband about any of the spending or any of the credit card debt, that she got to the point where she had to go into the bank with her husband in order to have some funds released so she could pay the debt. And it was in front of the banker that she looked her husband in the eye and said, "Hey, I have been financially cheating on you. I have not been honest. And this is what I've done. I don't feel great about it." And she told us just how sick she felt. But just saying that tale out loud, her story, to her husband in front of the banker, really released a lot of things. And she shares that what she learned from that experience was that our mistakes do not define us. Everyone makes money mistakes. We can learn from them. By sharing our money tales, we can normalize all of that.
Sandy, it's so important as you were talking about these conversations that we have in our head and Melissa's story about then normalizing it. But the head, I know when I have conversations in my head, it can become catastrophic. It expands and explodes.
Does.
Right?
And so you say it out loud, it's like the steam kind of comes out and everything
Yeah.
gets easier.
So
Even though it's scary, it can be really scary.
So the second point we want to make around having money conversations, it can be a gateway to even more important conversations. And I'll highlight a guest that we had, Sarah Van Voorhis, who's a family law attorney. And what she talked about, which I thought was really, really interesting and something she's passionate to have having conversations about, is in couples, when one of the parties is the primary breadwinner or brings more money into the relationship, there's a implied oftentimes that person has more power. That can be really dangerous. And
It happens all the time. It happens even outside of marriages, right? Think about society.
Yeah.
We place so much importance on the billionaires and assume just because they've made a lot of money, they're powerful and we should pay attention.
It's a really good point, Sandy. So once again, by sharing our money tale, it allows us to have that next, where we call it that gateway to more important. If you never start, you're never going to have those conversations.
Another power is the ability to increase your financial literacy. So if we go back to that technical side of money, and I mentioned before that we don't do a great job in the US today providing financial literacy. When you're sharing your money tailing, you're in these money conversations with other people, there's an opportunity that opens up to learn something new. I was just at a retreat over the weekend for a nonprofit board that I serve on, and we were having conversations about our job as ambassadors of asking for money from donors for the organization, right? So, most people don't like to talk about money. Asking for money is even lower on the list. It's really low on the list. And so as we were having this conversation, we were surfacing this discomfort. And then we got into a conversation about, well, how do people make charitable gifts? And what's the best way to do it? Should we be using cash? Should we be using appreciated investments that we've held for over a year? And it really just allowed the opportunity for the group to learn something new for some members, or reconfirm something that they already knew for other members of the board. This happens all the time in money conversations. If you're asking a friend, how do you think about retirement planning? I have so many other expenses. I'm worried that I'm not putting enough money in my retirement plan. How are you doing it? And then you get into like all these conversations about, gosh, well, I should contribute, and should I contribute to a Roth or a traditional? And what is a Roth? What is a traditional? There's a lot of room to provide and increase your financial literacy awareness in these conversations.
I love it, Sandy. Another one we're helping them, sharing your money story, helps you see your values. And one of our guests, I think, did a really great job bringing this to life, Dr. Jamie Traeger Muni, who is in college. She's dating a young man, and she wants to bring him home to meet her parents. And they grew up in different socioeconomic conditions, and she knew that. So they're driving along and they pull up to the parents' house, or the house she grew up in. And he's like, hang on a second. You're not the person I thought you were. And she looks at him and says, I'm the same person I was 5 minutes ago. It's your perception of me that's changed. And happily they had a conversation about, and the situation, the differences, and they were able to proceed, and they had a nice weekend, presumably. But importantly, what this helped Jamie realize is that the money she has doesn't define the person she is. That's really important.
It's really important. And when it comes to money tales, we always encourage our clients and everyone that we're in money conversation with to think about their values, right? It's these values that come up in the conversations that have such a big impact on our relationship with money. And these values don't just translate into our personal lives, they really work their way into our careers as well. There are a lot of folks who've come on the podcast who tell us about pursuing careers for economic gain. The only reason why they chose a particular field of work was because they wanted to increase their compensation. And when they do that without values alignment, things can get rough. It can be really miserable. And sometimes these value alignments aren't even just about the profession that you choose. It could be about the firm that you're working with or the type of work that you're doing. And so we had the opportunity to talk to a woman named Coach Pamela. She's a reinvention coach. She helps people with career changes, and she got into that field of work because of her own personal experience. She is someone who started working in Wall Street because she wanted to make a lot of money. She thought that was what she was supposed to do. And she wasn't, her heart and soul wasn't in the work that she was doing. She had a great boss, and that helped. So she was getting by. One day, the management of the firm changes. Her boss gets canned, and Coach Pamela is hating work. She can't stand going to work. She's like, the money didn't matter anymore. She was so misaligned with what the company was doing, and she was being treated poorly. And so she just couldn't stand it. So she just stopped working. She didn't have another plan. So she entered into
She
a
doesn't
whole
necessarily
new
recommended that strategy.
Yeah. she totally pivoted on her money tail. But that's what caused her to really think about what's most important to her. What are her values? How can she do something career-wise that is in alignment with what's most important to her? And that's how she became a reinvention coach today. Manisha Thakur is another guest. Her episode hasn't come out yet, but it's a really fascinating one. She worked in the financial services industry for decades, and she was someone who she realized equated her self-worth with her net worth. So every time she got a
Not
big
uncommon.
bonus, not uncommon. Every time she got a big bonus, it just reaffirmed who she was as a person. And it took her, as she tells us, 2 near-death experiences to realize that she didn't have values alignment. Like, she was lost. She didn't know who she was. She was just a workaholic, on a hamster on a wheel, just trying to get more and more money, but she wasn't satisfied. She was getting really sick, and wasn't making good choices for herself. And as a result of that, she's now completely shifted her life, and every decision she makes is with a values alignment lens, and that can make a big difference.
And our last point that's really important to all of us on this call is it helps make sure your compensation is appropriate from your employer and or your clients. And so 2 stories to bring this to life, examples. Ann Olson was a guest. She's a consultant. She's got a business partner. They're very good at what they do, but she didn't like following up on the bills. That was uncomfortable, making sure the clients were paying. So she and her business partner decided to create an alter ego named Crystal. And Crystal had the tone and the more diligent follow up on the bills, and was able to have and help Anne and her business partner follow up on really an important part of running a business, getting themselves paid without feeling that they were putting their relationships with their clients at jeopardy, in an awkward position. So I loved that example.
It was so brilliant. And we
So
never
great.
that would never occur to me. And
I
hearing
know.
Ed's story was really caused a light bulb to go off of,
Yeah.
wow, there's some creative ways out there to get clients to pay their bills.
It's so creative. Another story that I just think is so great for this group to hear is from Heather Rader. Heather was a very successful sales professional in the technology industry. So successful that then they got her to manage people as well as to, do her sales role. And one night she's grabbing drinks with a colleague of hers who happens to be a friend. And she asked him, how much do you get paid? And Heather was, the numbers, she knew she was contributing more to the organization. He gave her the number and it was well above what Heather was making. Steam's coming out of her ears like, what? How? He said, I just ask. I just go in and ask. And we know that's a limitation and some people feel uncomfortable. But once again, the more we talk about money, we can gain that comfort. Well, Heather marches into her boss's office the next morning and she asks and she got. That's part of the story, which I think is really great. What I love is Heather was like, I am going to make sure this doesn't happen to other people. So anyone she manages or mentors, she makes sure not only does she encourage them to be proactive and have money conversations, she actually role plays with them and make sure they're confident going in, maybe even to herself, to negotiate on their behalf. Powerful.
That story. So we've been talking about the power of what happens when you tell your money tales. You're talking about money. And I think it's worth mentioning what happens when you don't share, when you keep those money tales all in your mind. And when that happens, as humans, we're not talking about money with other people. We tend to make assumptions. And oftentimes those assumptions are incorrect. So I want you to think about that in your own life. We see it with clients all the time. We'll be working with the second generation of a family, and they'll be confused about why mom and dad made some decision. And they'll start to share with us their reasoning of why the decision was made. Because we're working with both generations of the family, we'll step in and say, well, wait a second, here's an opportunity for a money conversation. Let's bring everybody together because there was a miss on setting expectations. And it's been amazing. And we've seen that also from, in lots of circumstances. So we want you to think about this in your own life. What money conversations could you be having to test some of the assumptions that you're making about money decisions that are made by other people that impact you? So now let's talk about another interesting area of money conversations. When you talk about money a lot, you begin to realize that there are money scripts and myths that you've hung onto. Oftentimes, these myths come from the things that we hear from the adults around us when we're growing up, or from media, whatever we happen to be watching or listening to. We get these messages. And if we're not sharing our money tales, then we tend not to realize how we've internalized these messages. And so, Cammie, we've heard a lot of myths on the Money Tales podcast. Can you share some that
I will. Here are
we've
the
heard a
top
lot?
10.
Like, there's trends.
Yeah, here are sort of top 10, not by ranking in any means, but money brings you happiness. More income equals more wealth. Not necessarily. Not if your spending is excessive. Debt is always bad. Now, sometimes this, there's a religious belief for that might warrant, and really for any of these. But if that's not there, sometimes that fear that debt is always bad can really hold you back. Credit cards should be avoided. For that one. Investing is only for the wealthy.
Myth.
Myth. Sandy talked about this one. Your net worth is the measure of success, of your success, not necessarily. You need a lot of money to start saving. Definitely not. We've talked to a lot of people who said, you always put money away for yourself, no matter what. Financial advisors are only for the wealthy. I got two more that are sort of related. I'm not good at math. And the last one is the one that I want to somehow blow up, meaning break, destroy, make, not blow up and emphasize, throw away. I'm not good at investing. And that one is likely because the world doesn't talk in a way that makes us feel confident. You're good at investing. You can learn. We'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But it makes me think of these myths and how they play out. It makes me think of a guest by the name of Cicely Gay. She tells her story. She's a woman of color, a single mom at 16, and society, as a result, just put her out there, didn't believe in her. And Cicely believed in herself, and she figured out a way. But she grew up with two parents who were educators that didn't talk about money. And really, it was more of a scarcity mindset. For her, Cicely, it was work hard to pay the bills. And that's really what it's all about. And also some of the messaging was that there's really not a plan A. You always go to plan B. And she told us a story about one of her cousins who went to plan B. Cousin needed money. She had some dental issues and approached Cicely for a little bit of money to help her buy the medicine that helped with the pain. And Cicely inquired, like, well, what's really going on? And gosh, plan A was you go get the problem, the dental issues resolved, not just plan B, the medicine. And so Cicely had saved some money and like, no, we're going to take care of the dental issue. And so to this day that they did, and her cousin is just like super appreciative, obviously. But what this, all these experiences in life was teaching Cicely is this: she wanted to make sure she had two sons. She was raising two amazing boys, and she didn't want to pass along that scarcity mindset. And by thinking about these myths and really like debunking them, this was a tremendous asset to Cicely. And she subsequently raised these two amazing young men who don't come at things only looking at plan B, thinking about plan A and abolishing this idea of a scarcity mindset.
So we want to give our participants an opportunity to think about a myth that you might hold on to that you want to explore this year. Still January, still New Year's resolution time. So if you haven't filled up that bucket, what's a myth that you've held on to or that you want to look into and determine if is it a myth for me or not? Feel free to chat that in if you'd like. As you're doing that, we're going to start talking about some tips for having money conversations and telling your money tales. Anyone? Our chat box is not very active.
There we are.
Thank you,
Rich
Alice.
people are all horrible, immoral, and you don't want to be one. Alice, that's so right on.
Hey, that's worth looking into. People are people. It's funny, we put a lot of pressure on how much money someone has. If someone has too much money or not enough money, we make a lot of judgment as a society about them. So that's a great myth to look into. Thank you, Alice. Anyone else want to share? Okay, well, as we talk, if something comes to you, feel free to pop it in the chat. Here are some tips for talking about money. We have 5 of them for you. First off, start not by talking, but by writing. Write down your money tales. And I want to give you some prompts really quickly. We're going to do a speed round on this because we're getting close to the end of the session. But we have a few prompts for you. So consider these questions and just write down the first answer that comes to mind, okay? First prompt. Talking about money with and you get to choose here, spouse, partner, or best friend is, complete the sentence. So talking about money with my spouse, partner, or best friend is. Next prompt, very similar. talking about money with my parents or my children or another close family member, you get to choose, is fill in the blank. Talking about money with my parents, my children, or another close family member is. The third prompt. The money conversation that's most difficult for me is. The money conversation that's most difficult for me is. And then the last prompt. The money topic I'm most excited to talk about is. The money topic I'm most excited to talk about is. So as you think through these questions, and we invite you to spend some more time with it later today or over the weekend, these answers should start to inform some of your money tale. Because if I say, well, what is your money tale? You might know it right off the top of your head because you've told it before. But if you haven't, it can sometimes be hard. So these prompts can help us get our juices flowing. And by taking the stories out of our head and writing them on paper or typing them, again, it just uses a different part of our brain. It allows us to make connections differently. And I want to share another prompt from one of our podcast guests in case this inspires you some more. We had the opportunity to speak with Laura Munson. She's a published novelist. And this is the money prompt she offered up. She said, write about money as if money is a character, the main character in your story. So money with a capital M. And choose 3 days to write about money. Choose a holiday, choose a vacation day, and choose tax day. So April 15th, when taxes are due. And write about money. What's money wearing? What's money saying? What's money doing on those days? How's money interacting with you? I thought that was a really fun, creative way. I think Cammie and I both did the exercise, and it was quite interesting. So we recommend that to help you tap more into your money tales. And I do see a request for the prompts, and I'll work on that as Cammie's speaking, but it'll take me a little bit of time.
Okay, great. Number two, you won't be surprised that I'm about to say this, but just start having money conversations, but start small. We start money tales with asking someone, when did money start having meaning in your life? When you were young, how was money handled in your home growing up? These are sort of low, soft storytelling, but a way to get comfortable around having money conversations. Sandy, you want me to jump to the next one?
No, I got it. So,
Okay, great.
so get curious, right? So when you're telling your money tale, get curious about what was prompting you to make a decision. When you're talking with someone else about their money tale, ask them about what prompted them to make decisions. Why are they feeling a certain way? What's most important to them? Get really curious. And the way I like to think about this is, in our lives, we tend to be the protagonist. We're on the stage. When you start getting into conversation, sharing your money tales, you move up into the balcony. You can see things differently. You see a wider view. So get curious. Joe Gagnon is a podcast guest. He had some really great tips about this. He said he always likes to learn from the smartest people. And so when it comes to money and other things, he engages the smartest people he knows in conversation, and he engages the smartest people he doesn't know. And he does this through listening to podcasts or TED Talks or reading books. There's so many different ways to get curious and inform the money conversations we're having.
Thanks, Sandy. I'm conscious of time. 4 is to chip away at it. This isn't, you don't have to solve everything all at once. Chip away at it. And I love the story. One of our guests, Rabbi Leader, Steve Leader, talked about, if you have a chunk of marble, it's just a chunk of marble. It's not beautiful. As you chip away, the beauty lies underneath. And this is just a great reminder. We don't have to eat it all at once. We don't have to understand everything at once. We don't need to be super confident at once. We just need to chip away. And number 5, hire an expert that's eager to teach you. Be your guide, answer your questions, make you feel smart. hire that expert. So we are coming up on time. Sandi, would you share? Oh, sorry, you're multitasking.
No, I got it.
This has been amazing. We have a question I want to answer. Thank you for pulling this up, and then we have some other resources that we'll send after the webinar.
Yeah.
Sandi?
So one of the things that we do with clients at the end of our meetings is give them an opportunity to reflect on the conversation, the topics that we just talked about. So we want to encourage you to reflect on our conversation today. So we're curious for you to ask yourself, and again, anyone who wants to share in the chat, we welcome that. As a result of this webinar, what's changed for you? What's something that you learned or unlearned? What squares with your thinking? What did you come into this conversation thinking that got reinforced from the conversation? And then what's still circling for you? What are you still thinking about as it relates to money conversations that you want to learn?
And while we wait for that chat, Karen wrote in, is there a minimum amount of savings the clients you serve have? I love this question. There is definitely an it just depends, but Sandi, how would you respond to Karen? Is there a minimum amount of savings the clients you serve have?
When we work with clients, we do require a $1.5 million minimum to manage portfolios and provide comprehensive wealth planning services. If you're someone who meets that minimum and would like to chat with us, we'd love to have a conversation with you. If you're someone who doesn't meet that minimum today and would like a referral to another advisor who can help out, we want to talk to you too. Let us know how we can help. We think finding a good financial advisor who can help you make important money decisions is key for everyone. And you don't have to be wealthy to do that.
Thanks, Sandi. All right. One of our participants wrote, one of your prompts made me realize that I'm struggling with something. I'll definitely be writing about it. Oh, good for you. Excellent. And what we have here, and this will be part of the materials that Jen shares with you after the event, links to some of the podcast guests that we've mentioned, as if you want to go back and listen and be inspired by their stories. And last but not least, here's our contact information. We'd love to stay in touch. We've provided our emails. LinkedIn is always a great resource. We are so passionate about this. Hopefully that came across. We are very passionate about helping people be more comfortable talking about money, getting in touch with their money story, and talking more about money. Reach out if we can answer any questions.
And we want to leave you with one last compound question. This is what we ask all of our guests on Money Tales. What is your next money conversation going to be, and who is it going to be with? Thank you all for participating. This has been a lot of fun. And thank you,
Thanks,
Jen,
everyone.
for moderating all of our needs today.
Thank you both so much. It has been such a pleasure. Everything you've talked about was so thought-provoking. I'm certainly going to tune into those podcast episodes, the ones that have already happened and any future ones. I will provide a recording of this program as well as links to Sandi and Cammie's information, the presentation today, and other resources. So that will come to you all next week. Anyone that registered, double check that we have no more questions coming in before we say our goodbyes. But I think we can close out. So thank you both so much once again.
Been a delight and a privilege. Thank you.
Really, thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day, everybody, and a nice weekend.